Lydia Grant stared at the message on her phone that Tuesday morning. "I'm quitting next week. You'll cover our debts while I reorganize." No greeting, no explanation, only entitlement. She read it twice, feeling heat rise to her face. After years of silence and sacrifice, something inside her snapped. Her hands trembled, but her mind felt strangely clear. She typed 3 simple words. "That's your problem." Then she hit send. Without hesitation, she opened her email and signed the contract for an overseas nursing job beginning the following Monday. Her son, Ethan, would message her later, but it would already be too late. What happened next would shock everyone around Lydia, but before that moment, she knew she had to tell the truth. She needed people to understand how she reached such a breaking point, how a mother slowly becomes an ATM, how love twisted into debt, how silence nearly destroyed her. At 66, Lydia's home smelled of morning coffee and lavender candles that helped her calm the anxiety nobody knew she carried. The walls were covered with smiling photographs. Ethan and his wife, Zoe, on vacations she paid for. Zoe in a wedding dress Lydia financed. Birthdays and dinners funded by her silent sacrifices. Every photograph was an invoice. Every smile cost her pieces of her future. Lydia had worked double nursing shifts for years so Ethan could finish college and start a life better than hers. And he did. A good job, a bright future, and then marriage to Zoe. Lydia believed her role was complete. But on Ethan's wedding day, instead of celebrating, she hid in a bathroom calculating how to pay 6 months of the mortgage she had co-signed for their apartment. Ethan had said, "Mom, just this once." Those words became her life sentence. That once turned into years. Lydia paid the apartment's down payment, $10,000 from her retirement savings. Ethan promised, "We'll pay you back in 6 months." 2 years passed. Not a single dollar returned. She covered rent when Zoe quit her job suddenly because she needed peace. She paid for repairs, groceries, electronics, and endless emergencies that weren't hers. Each time Lydia asked about repayment, Ethan sighed. "We're tight, Mom. Please give us more time." Time. As if it didn't cost her anything. As if her remaining years were infinite. She stopped buying clothes, cut outings, canceled gym membership. Her world shrinking daily. Lydia became a shadow working only to keep her adult children comfortable. She thought that was love, to erase herself completely for her son's happiness. But that Tuesday morning, Zoe's message broke something in her. There were no tears, no shouting, only a quiet internal click like a locked door. "I'm quitting next week. You'll pay our debts." Zoe didn't even ask. She assumed Lydia existed solely to rescue them. Lydia sat at her kitchen table, staring at the dirty mugs and electricity bill she had been postponing. Her life had become a cycle of survival so others could live well. Then Lydia saw the unread email. A job offer she had been too afraid to open for days. An overseas contract for 6 months, with excellent pay and free housing. An escape she never believed she would take. She reread Zoe's message, searching for a single sign of humility, a please, a thank you, anything. There was none. Just expectation. Lydia typed, "That's your problem," sent it, then opened the job offer and signed without hesitation. In under 5 minutes, her destiny shifted. She didn't call Ethan. She didn't explain. She simply stood up and began packing her suitcase. The silence after sending that message felt heavy but strangely liberating. Lydia waited, expecting the familiar guilt-ridden responses. But Zoe didn't even read the message immediately. That told Lydia everything. To Zoe, Lydia wasn't a person. She was a resource. Lydia walked to her bedroom and pulled out her large suitcase, the one she had never used because she never took vacations. Vacations were luxuries for people whose lives weren't tied down by others' demands. She folded her first blouse with trembling hands. Every item she placed in the suitcase felt like a quiet rebellion, a declaration of self. Lydia gathered her essential documents: passport, birth certificate, bank papers. She realized she hadn't touched many of them in years because she no longer lived for herself. At exactly 11 a.m., her phone rang. "Ethan." Then again. And again. 6 missed calls in 20 minutes. Then his messages began to flood in. Mom, answer me. Mom, what did you say to Zoe? And finally, Mom, we need to talk. That phrase made Lydia laugh bitterly. We need never meant solving problems together. Meant Mom, fix this. Mom, pay this. Mom, sacrifice again. She ignored the phone and kept packing. She packed her medications, her personal photo of her parents, her small jewelry box. Items representing who she was before she became their solution. She wondered what her parents would think of her leaving. Would they be proud she finally stood up for herself? Or disappointed she was distancing herself from her son? Then she remembered her mother's words. Don't let them love you only when they need something. That is not love. That is convenience. It had taken Lydia 3 decades to understand it, but at that moment it finally made sense. Zoe's messages started coming next. Lydia, I don't understand your attitude. We thought we could count on you. And then, this is very selfish. The word hit Lydia like cold water. Selfish. She who had emptied her accounts for them. She who had skipped medical exams because she couldn't afford them after paying their bills. Something hardened inside her. She blocked Zoe's number instantly. No drama, no hesitation. Just freedom. She felt a huge weight lift from her chest. Years of emotional chains snapping all at once. Ethan kept calling and this time she answered. Mom. Finally. What's going on? Ethan demanded. What did you say to Zoe? His tone wasn't worried. It was irritated, like she had inconvenienced him. Lydia took a deep breath. I told her the truth, Ethan. Her problems are her problems. Silence stretched so long she wondered if he'd hung up. Then Ethan exploded. Are you kidding? Zoe is stressed. She needs a break. Lydia's voice stayed calm. She's been taking breaks for 3 years. Breaks that I paid for. When did either of you ever ask if I needed a break? Ethan scoffed. Mom, don't be dramatic. Dramatic? Lydia repeated softly. Tell me when you repaid even $1 you promised. More silence. 'Cause there was no answer. Ethan sighed sharply. This isn't fair. We're your family. Lydia nodded to herself. Yes. And family support is not supposed to be one-sided. Ethan snapped. I can't believe how selfish you're being. There it was again. The accusation she had been conditioned to fear. But this time, instead of guilt, Lydia felt anger rising like fire. Selfish is expecting your mother to clean up your adult decisions, she said firmly. I'm done carrying what is yours. Ethan tried again. Mom, wait. No, she cut in. I've waited long enough. I waited for responsibility. I waited for respect. I waited for you to see me as more than a bank. Ethan demanded. What does that mean? What are you going to do? Lydia closed her suitcase and whispered. I'm going to live. Then she hung up. When he called back, she didn't answer. The phone rang and rang until even it seemed to give up. Lydia zipped her suitcase shut as the sun began lowering in the sky. Her entire life fit in one bag. She didn't cry as she reviewed her bank accounts that night. She simply acted. She canceled Ethan's emergency credit card, the one that paid for luxury dinners. She called the bank and removed herself as co-signer from their apartment. Are you sure, ma'am? The representative asked. Completely, she replied. She changed every password, locking every door that led back to her sacrifices. At 3 a.m., Ethan sent a long message. Fear, anger, guilt tripping blended together. If you don't pay, I could be sued. Do you want that? Lydia stared at the message. She felt nothing but clarity. She opened her suitcase again and placed one last thing inside. Her dignity. Something she had lost between loans and broken promises. She realized she had allowed her son's needs to bury her identity. But now, in the silence of early dawn, she reclaimed herself. Friday morning felt different. Not because the world had changed, but because Lydia had. She woke without the familiar knot in her stomach. She brewed good coffee, the brand she had stopped buying because it was too expensive. She sat outside on her tiny patio, watching the sunrise. For the first time in years she tasted freedom. Her phone buzzed non-stop. 43 messages, 17 missed calls, unfamiliar numbers. Even Zoe's sister messaged, accusing Lydia of abandoning them. Lydia read them all calmly. Every sentence was the same old script. Guilt, blame, manipulation. Not a single message asked, "Are you okay?" That absence said everything. At 10 a.m. the doorbell rang. Lydia looked out the window and saw Ethan's car. He and Zoe approached the doorstep. Zoe's eyes were red. Ethan looked determined. They knocked. "Mom, open up. We need to talk." Lydia stood frozen inside the house, her heart pounding with an unfamiliar strength. Ethan knocked harder. "Mom, please. Open the door. We need you." That word again. Need. To them, her purpose was to serve. Zoe cried loudly. "Lydia, please don't ruin this family over pride." Pride. As if defending her own life was arrogance. Lydia leaned against the wall, shaking. A battle raged inside her. The old version of herself wanting to open the door and save them, and the new version whispering, "If you open it, you'll never leave. If you give in once, you'll give in forever." Ethan threatened to call the police. That snapped something awake in her. She walked to the door but didn't unlock it. Instead she spoke through it. "I hear you, but I'm not opening. I've made my decision." Ethan growled. "Grow up, Mom." Lydia felt an unexpected calm. "You're 34, Ethan. Maybe it's your turn." Zoe's voice turned cold. "She's changed, Ethan. She's selfish now. Probably having a crisis." Lydia almost laughed. A midlife crisis. No, she was having a midlife awakening. After minutes of futile knocking, they left in anger. Their car sped away. Lydia slid down the door and cried. Not from sadness but from pure relief. That afternoon, she resigned from her hospital job. Her boss was shocked but supportive. Lydia closed the joint bank account she once opened for Ethan as a safety net. She signed documents removing herself from financial responsibility for their apartment. Each signature felt like a brick being lifted off her back. She returned home and packed winter clothes, books she always wanted to read, and a new journal. She looked around her house, her sanctuary and prison. She had asked her friend Mara to watch it while she was away. Mara hugged her tightly and whispered, "It's your turn now." That night, Lydia prayed quietly, not asking for forgiveness, but giving thanks for courage. Saturday arrived with a sense of anticipation. Her sister, Helen, arrived unexpectedly with food, tears in her eyes. "Ethan called me," she said softly. "He told me his version. Then I called Mara, and I heard the truth." They ate together silently, a comforting, familiar peace filling the room. Helen held her hand. "You should have left long ago. You deserve to live, Lydia, not just survive. I'm proud of you." Lydia felt her throat tighten. For the first time in years she felt understood. Helen stayed until sunset. They talked about childhood memories, old wounds, and the patterns they inherited from their mother. The pattern of loving until nothing was left. When she finally stood to leave, she slipped an envelope into Lydia's hand. "Open it on the plane," she whispered. "You shouldn't feel alone on your way to a new life." When Helen drove off, Lydia stood on her porch for a long time, breathing in the evening quiet. It felt like the house itself was exhaling with her, sharing the weight she was about to release. Tomorrow she would be gone. That night, sleep avoided her. She wandered through rooms filled with decades of memories, touching furniture she once cleaned after long shifts, photos that once brought pride but now carried pain. She paused at a picture of Ethan as a child hugging her tightly. She whispered, "Where did we lose each other?" Her therapist's old words echoed in her mind. "You're not responsible for adult choices. You only know what you were taught." Lydia finally understood. Ethan was no longer a boy. And she could no longer play the role of savior. She fell asleep on the couch, exhausted. At 3 a.m., her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. It was Zoe. I got another phone since you blocked me. Please don't leave us. Michael will get sued. Just this one more time. I swear we won't ask again. Lydia read it calmly. It was perfectly crafted manipulation. Fear, guilt, promises. The same cycle she had lived in for years. But this time she felt clarity instead of panic. She typed a reply. You both created these debts. You can fix them. My answer is no. She hit send, blocked the number, and turned off her phone. She stepped into the shower. Hot water washed over her as she cried. Not weak tears, but the kind that cleanse. She cried for the woman she used to be. The one who always said yes, who carried everything in silence, who believed love meant disappearing. She cried until her chest felt lighter. When she looked in the fogged mirror afterward, she saw a different Lydia. 66. Gray hair. Tired skin. But behind all that, determination. For the first time in decades, she saw a woman choosing herself. She dressed for her journey with steady, unshaking hands. The alarm rang at 4:30 a.m., but Lydia had already been awake. She made her final cup of coffee in the kitchen she knew better than her own heartbeat. She savored it slowly, knowing it was a farewell ritual. At 5:15, the taxi driver arrived and helped her with her suitcase. She looked at her home, curtains closed, lights off, as though the house itself was sleeping. To the airport? The driver asked. To the airport, she answered. As the taxi rolled away, she didn't look back. She knew that if she did, she might hesitate. And she couldn't. The city was still quiet. Streetlights blinked over empty roads. It felt like the world was paused, giving Lydia a clean path forward. At the airport she checked in. The attendant smiled kindly. Business or pleasure? Lydia hesitated, then said, pleasure. Because one day she hoped it would be true. She passed through security, removing shoes, sweater, laptop, the routine that always felt annoying but today felt symbolic. When she stepped through the final scanner, she felt as if she had physically crossed into a new life. No one knew her here. No one expected anything from her. She sat at the gate with 40 minutes to spare. Turning on her phone one last time, she saw 27 messages waiting. Ethan, Zoe, relatives she barely spoke to. All demanding, accusing, pleading. Even Zoe's mother had written, "Family matters most." Lydia shook her head. That phrase had chained her for years, weaponized to control her. She deleted every message. Then she opened Helen's envelope. Letter. Handwritten, soft, uneven. Her sister wrote about admiration, regret, love, and the years she watched Lydia fade. Fly, Lydia. Fly as far as you need. You deserve life. Tears fell silently. The flight boarded. Lydia found her window seat and fastened her belt. The cabin filled with sleepy passengers, business travelers, families, young people with headphones. A woman around 30 sat beside her, polite but distant. Lydia was grateful for the quiet. As the plane started taxiing, she felt something break loose inside her, an emotional chain finally snapping. The moment the wheels lifted off the ground, Lydia pressed her forehead to the window. Below, the city shrank into tiny squares. Somewhere in that maze lived Ethan and Zoe, still believing she would return. But Lydia was already gone. The plane pierced through a thick layer of clouds, emerging into brilliant sunlight. Lydia closed her eyes, bathing in the brightness. Felt symbolic, a cleansing. She turned on airplane mode. The phrase made her smile. For the first time, she understood what it meant to be completely unreachable. No one could demand anything now. She opened her settings and changed her emergency contact, removing Ethan's name and replacing it with Helen's. A small change that felt enormous. She wasn't relying on a son who had never truly supported her. She was choosing someone who actually cared. 6 hours passed slowly. Lydia didn't sleep. She watched clouds drift like white mountains beneath her. She wondered how many women had taken flights like this, escaping, healing, beginning again. Halfway through the journey, her seatmate removed her headphones. First time going there. Lydia nodded. You'll love it, the woman said warmly. It's a good place to start over. Lydia blinked. Is it that obvious? The woman smiled. I ran away once too. Best decision I ever made. She put her headphones back on. But her words stayed with Lydia, warming her like a small flame. The plane landed early afternoon. As Lydia stepped into the arrivals hall, she felt smaller, lighter, and braver all at once. The signs were in another language, the air sharper and cooler. A woman holding a sign that read Lydia Grant approached her. Welcome, she said warmly. I'm Margaret, your program coordinator. Long trip, yes. Let's get you settled. Lydia nodded gratefully. A stranger's kindness, without expectation, almost made her cry. They drove to a modest apartment complex. Margaret showed her every detail. Laundry room, heating, mailbox. For Lydia, each explanation felt like a gift, a life that finally belonged to her. When Margaret left, Lydia locked the door. She stood in the center of the studio apartment. One bed, one window, one kitchen, one life that was finally her own. The silence was so deep it echoed. No voices, no demands, no footsteps, just air. She sat on the floor and sobbed, the sound raw and echoing off the bare walls. She cried for everything she had endured, everything she had given, everything she had lost. But she also cried for what she had gained, a beginning. When she finished, she washed her face and unpacked slowly, placing each item thoughtfully. At 4 p.m. she turned on her phone again. Messages flooded in, more than 50. Voicemails, missed calls. Desperation disguised as concern. Mom, where are you? I'm coming to your house. Why aren't you answering? The final message chilled her. If you leave, there may be nothing to come back to. Instead of fear, Lydia felt relief. They were confirming what she already knew. Her value had always been tied to what she provided, not who she was. She typed a short reply. I'm safe. I need space. I love you, but I must live my life. Then she deleted the app. She created a new email address, one only Helen and Mara would know. Then she stepped outside for a walk around her new neighborhood. Parks, tidy streets, people walking dogs. It was peaceful, ordinary, perfect. An older woman watering plants smiled. New neighbor, she asked cheerfully. Welcome. Fiona. Second floor. Lydia smiled back, warmed by the simple friendliness. In a nearby store, she bought bread, fruit, coffee, basics she could afford without guilt. When she paid, something inside her whispered, this is my money, my choice, my life. A strange, tender joy rose in her chest. Her first meal in her new home was simple, scrambled eggs and warm toast. She ate while watching people stroll through the park. No one needed her. No one depended on her. She wasn't on alert, waiting for another crisis. She slept deeply that night, waking to the sun touching her face. On Tuesday she started her new job. Clean uniform, calm heartbeat, determined eyes. The hospital was bright and organized. Her supervisor, Mr. Adamson, greeted her respectfully and introduced her to the team. You'll be valued here, he said. Lydia almost teared up at the word valued. Her colleagues were welcoming. A Colombian nurse named Sophia gave her a tour. Here we respect breaks. When your shift ends, it's over, she said with a smile. Lydia felt something inside her soften. The work was familiar, but the environment was different. Calm, structured, respectful. For the first time in years, she wasn't drowning under chaos. She went home that first night exhausted but not defeated. She made dinner, took a warm shower, and sat by the window. She waited for guilt to creep in, but instead she felt contentment, a gentle, unfamiliar peace. Days turned into weeks. Lydia learned the bus routes, the best places to buy groceries, and the rhythm of her shifts. She made friends with Sophia and 2 other nurses who invited her for coffee after work. She smiled more, laughed more, breathed easier. But nights were harder. That was when memories invaded, when she wondered if Ethan hated her. Sometimes she held her phone, tempted to message him. But she resisted. Healing wasn't linear. Some nights she cried. Other nights she journaled. Slowly, she noticed her heart growing quieter, lighter, as if learning how to live again. After 8 weeks, Ethan wrote again. His message arrived at 2 a.m. Zoe left me. I'm drowning in debt. I'm looking for another job. I think I understand now. I used you. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Lydia read it 5 times. Her heart ached, not from guilt, but from recognition. He was finally seeing her as a person. 2 days later she replied, "Thank you for your honesty. Love you. But distance is helping us both grow. I hope you stand on your own feet. We will talk when the time is right." Months passed. Lydia created a simple, beautiful routine. Morning coffee, work, walks in the park, calls with Helen, messages from Mara. She bought flowers for her table, joined a gentle yoga class, visited bookstores, and filled her shelves with novels. She no longer checked her phone anxiously. She no longer felt like she was drowning. One evening she sat on her sofa, watching the sun dip below the buildings, and realized something incredible. She was finally okay. Not perfect, not healed completely, but okay, peaceful, present. She touched her heart and whispered, "I'm still here." 3 months after Zoe's message started it all, Lydia understood something profound. That text didn't destroy her life, it freed her. "I'm quitting next week. You'll pay our debts." Those words pushed her into her greatest transformation. Her quiet reply, "That's your problem," became the start of her liberation. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she'd return home or stay abroad. But she finally had something she had been denied for years. Choice. With power. And she whispered to every woman who might read her story, "You are allowed to save yourself. You are allowed to fly.